Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video we're going to be adding some food items to the game so we can run around, collect them, eat them, and let's start now. So I was thinking we could add some burgers and the shark could eat the burgers. So we're going to do an image search for a burger, images. I'm going to click the cartoon recommendation here, and I'm going to make sure that it's square by going to settings, advanced search settings, any aspect ratio square, and doing an advanced search. I'm going to go back to the cartoon one. I thought it would keep that. So I think this burger looks pretty good here. So let's click that. And let's do the same process that we did before. So we're going to do a control click, save image as. We're going to save it to the game folder. So we'll do let's just name this food image.jpg because it's a JPEG. Yours might be a PNG and then you would do .png. So we click save. And now we're going to close down this window. We'll go to that food image and we need to edit it in the same ways that we edited the player image. So that's going to mean that we need to shrink it down so that's the appropriate size, and we also need to make sure it has a clear background. So let's do the clear background first. We click the toolbox. Using the magic wand, you drag until it highlights the whole background pink. Now you let go of the mouse, you press the delete button on your keyboard. It's going to convert it to a PNG, that's fine, and we've got our image with no background. So to shrink it, we'll go to Tools, Adjust Size, and we're going to make it the same size as the shark image, which was 60 pixels by 60 pixels. Then we press OK, and now we've got a tiny little burger food thing that our shark is going to try to eat, and I think things look pretty good. So we'll do it File, Save on the image, and then we quit out of the image, and we go to our folder. We've got a couple of things. We've got this version of the image and this one. So this one is the one that we want, even though it's blurry. It's because, right, we shrunk it down, so now it's like a zoomed in version, so it looks distorted. We're going to delete this version of it with the random numbers and letters. Okay, so we're ready to add the food to the game. So we go into our game, and it looks like when we were creating a new image, we did a process like this. So let's add the food to this process, and let's actually just create a little comment here, and it says load images into the game. And so let's let food image equal a new image object. That's an object that JavaScript defines, not an object that we define. And then we're going to say food image.source is equal to whatever file name we gave it. So in this case, food image.png. Okay, so we've got our food image. Now we're going to actually have multiple food pieces floating around on the screen. We're going to have a shark. We're going to have a lot of different, these are called sprites on the screen. So we're going to start keeping track of these sprites in a collection, in a list. So after loading all these images, let's say create some collection lists for our objects. So the first one is going to be a list that contains every single sprite in the game. So let's let sprites equal an empty list. Next up, we're also going to have a list that contains all the food in the game. And currently there's no food, so let's let foods equal an empty list as well. Okay, so when we build the player, we're going to add to the constructor for this player, which is one line of code, which says whenever we create a new player, add that player to the sprites list. And in order to do this, we need to go into our AP tools. So opening in a new window, toolbox, grabbing our AP tools from here. We'll put that above our script tags. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us access to the append function. So the append tool is going to be important because we want to add our player to this list of sprites. So whenever we build a player, we'll do append to sprites this, and that way the player will be inside of the sprites list. Okay, so now that we have a sprites list and a foods list, we've got the food image loaded, it's time to create an abstraction for what it means to be food in the context of our game. So below the player abstraction, which is closed off by this curly brace, you'll see those two are highlighted, we're going to create a class called food. And this is a cookie cutter template for all of the food items in the game, and it's what it means to be food in this game. So food needs a constructor, so it's going to be very similar to the player constructor. So we'll do some copying and Command-Shift-V pretty paste into the food. So every food is going to have an X and a Y coordinate, which we'll specify initially. They're going to have an image, but it's no longer the player image, it's the food image. They're not going to have a speed, so we'll delete that line. They're not going to have a direction, so we'll delete that line. And we do still want to add the foods to that sprites list. We also want to add the food to the foods list. So we're going to append to foods this item whenever we create a new food. The food is also going to have a draw method. So let's copy the draw method from the player, and let's paste that into food. And whenever we draw the food, we want to draw this image, which is the food image, at this X and this Y coordinate, which will be the X and Y coordinates for the food. Now, we'll also add an update function for our food. And our update function is going to be empty. There's not going to be any update currently for our food. So our food has the same structure as the player, which is useful. It's got a constructor, a draw, and an update in both of them. Our update happens to be blank here. Let's see if that will let us leave it blank. So now that we've defined our cookie cutter for what it means to be food, let's go into our load function and create some food. So when the game starts, we're going to make, let's say 2 food items to start. So let food1 equal new food, and we have to give it some X and Y coordinates. But rather than always starting with the food at the same coordinates, it would be nice if it started at some random coordinates. So that should remind us of a function we've been using kind of throughout the whole last 2 months. We need our generate random function. So whatever project you used it last in, I think for me it was this one with the random circles. Go in and grab the generate random function with min number and max number in it. Copy that into your game. And let's copy that into the game right up here below all those consts. So now we have this generate random function, and that's going to be important. So down here when we're making our new food, the food one's X coordinate. And actually, you know what? Rather than do this every time for the food where we create an X and Y coordinate, let's go into our food class and let's edit it. We no longer want to specify the X and Y coordinates where the food is going to be made. Instead, let's let this .x coordinate be generate random, and the X coordinate will be any number from 0 to the width of the canvas. And the Y coordinate is going to be generate any number from 0 to the height of the canvas. And this is a much smarter way to do it than the way that I was initially thinking to do it, which is every time we construct food now, it's going to generate the X and Y coordinates to be random numbers. So down here when we were making the foods, we had let food1 equal new food, semicolon, and let food2 equal new food. So let's see if our food is working. So we refresh our screen, and our food doesn't appear on the screen. So let's go into the console and see if there's an error. It's logging all the keys still, so that's why these are coming up here. But if we type in foods, it looks like our foods list is populated with 2 food items, and they actually have X and Y coordinates. So the issue isn't that the foods aren't being made, the issue is we have to edit our game loop now. So when we edit our game loop, instead of just updating the player, we want to update all the sprites. So a useful way of doing this is to say, go into that sprites list, and just to look at that sprites list, we'll click on it down here. Go into that sprites list and do a for each loop for each of them. So sprites.forEach, we'll call the sprite that we're currently on Sprite, and then all we'll do is say whatever sprite we're currently on, do the .update function. And then similarly down here, let's just copy and paste this, and when we want to draw all the sprites, rather than drawing the player in particular, let's go into the sprites list, and then for each sprite, do a sprite.draw. So we'll give that a save and a refresh here, and all right, we've got our burgers appearing on the screen. Now, we're not eating our burgers yet, but this is a pretty good start. So let's refresh it, and they appear in random spots. I'm going to get rid of the console. And in the next video, we're going to figure out how do we actually eat the burgers.